So yeah, there's a couple commands that, I mean, really it's just like 3, but there's this npx React Native init, and then project name or whatever you want to call it. Now this command just creates the React project. I'm going to Slack this out in case if any of you do want to run this. So there's that command. And then that will create your React Native project. So you're going to want to run that. You know, it's kind of like when you create a Rails app or a React app, you'll want to run that in the folder where you want that directory to live. Another thing just to notice, like it's a small little thing, but when you run that command, it doesn't initialize a Git repo automatically. So we need to do that. It's pretty easy enough to get in it. Cool. So now I have this Git repo. So the next thing we're going to do is getting this set up. So, or running this. So there's 2 commands we can run for that. The first is npx React Native start. And this you can kind of think of like, you know, when you run like Rails S or Yarns or like Yarn start with a React project, it's just running this, like, because we're kind of stuck here now in this terminal, just loading up what's called like the Metro bundler. So, and this is just going to be watching for the code changes. So when you change code, it will like rebuild your JavaScript. So there's that. So now I need to get a new terminal pane. So let me throw this one in Slack. Okay, and then the next one we run, the npx React Native run-ios. This one's going to build the app and start up the emulator. Or simulator, I guess they're calling it simulator. In Slack. Where is my phone? So yeah, now I should have a simulator somewhere. Yeah, if you've already built this app once, it's generally a lot quicker. It's like that first time you have to build it. Yeah, here we go. Here's the emulator running, we can, this can be a little like you can treat this like an iPhone. So like if I select this bar and like swipe up, it like that's, you know, that's how you can do it on an iPhone, you know, to get to your main menu. You can like, so you gotta like click and hold as you swipe, but you can like just, you know, swipe this, look at your apps. So this one is the one we're developing. So if I want to like see it, I just click on it. There it is. And yeah, like to scroll on it, you just kind of click and hold down and scroll. Let's just talk about some of the dev tools. So once, like you can see right here, see your changes. So hit Command R. Sometimes maybe if you don't see your changes propagate, you hit Command R. That's going to reload this, because we don't have like, you know, in the browser, that would be the equivalent of like hitting refresh. But this is not a browser. This is a mobile app. So we're going to hit Command R and reload. We can also do a Command D to pull up this. So we could click reload. That will reload it. That's also what it's doing, is simulating the shake, like shaking your phone. So if you go to, another way you can trigger that is you can go to somewhere, yeah, device, and then shake. And that will pull up these developer tools. So you can reload. We'll use this because say we want to do like console.logs. How do we grab the console.logs? Where we're going to debug with Chrome. And there we go. So this, in this window, where that just popped up, that's where we'll be able to see some of our logs. Cool. So if yeah, you can click stop debugging. You can disable your refresh, show inspector. This is kind of like if you want to go like inspect an element, see the styling, see the component itself. A little bit of that. I want to disable that, so I go hide inspector. Those are just some of the basic dev tools for this that we'll want to use. I think the most important one is, you know, being able to reload and getting up this debugger tool so we can see any console.logs. Cool. So let's keep going. Let's open this up in VS Code. And this is nice because I can just put these side by side. All right. Actually, I'm going to do this one in a full screen just in case. Let's do it like that. So yeah, let's look at the folder structure just briefly. So a couple things we have here. We have just to kind of point out what's different with this in versus like React, like a React project is, yeah, we have like an Android folder and an iOS folder. So these are going to be like, you know, the specific folders that you would want for like an Android device or like an iOS device. Now you can actually come into these, we're not going to do it, but you come in here and, you know, you can write some custom native code and like hook that up to React Native. that's definitely a little more advanced, but we'll probably see a little that, even when we like say we're using a third-party library, there sometimes can be a difference. Was that third-party library written in JavaScript, or was it actually written in the native languages? So sometimes when we install a third-party library, we might need to come into like the iOS folder and like make sure like in our, like we're adding this in like our, like the pod file or inside of here. So we might need to come in here and like make some small changes, but the documentation of that library will let us know. And then also React Native with some recent upgrades has made that process even more streamlined. So we're generally, for now, we're not going to be really messing around with these folders, but they are there. And then, yeah, as far as that, a lot of this is going to be the same. Like we have our package JSON, we have our yarn lock. It's funny because we have a gem file in here. The main thing we're using, because this isn't a Rails app, but we're going to just be using that Cocoa pods. But we really won't do anything with this. We have our index.js. This is kind of like our top level JavaScript file where we grab that at component and, build it to the iPhone. That's kind of basically what's going on there. And then we have our app.js, which is where we can start writing some React. Cool. Questions on this? There are some, let's maybe just talk about a couple of these files, just so we can kind of know what's going on here. So Watchman config. So Watchman is kind of watching over folders. If there's specific stuff and like watching over our folders and our files, if there's specific stuff, we could set up stuff, we could throw it in here. Ruby version, that's just our version of Ruby that we're using for this. Prettier. Does anyone know what Prettier is? Or is anyone using Prettier?
I'm using it.
Yeah. Prettier is just a little, extension you can install. Prettier. And yeah, this is going to, it's a code formatter. So this is a place you can, set some rules to format your code. So if you don't have that, I think you could go ahead and install that. This one's pretty popular. So yeah, this prettier.rcjs, this is just where you can like add your own rules, because there's really no agreed about standards of like codes, like this is more like your code styling, but so this is where you as a company for different projects, you might want to share the same Prettier rules. Like, do we use single quotes or double quotes? It really doesn't matter, just pick one. So stuff like that. We know what the get ignore file is. That's just files we don't want to ignore, track. There's this flow config. So flow is, it's kind of like, it's a different version of TypeScript. Flow's like a less strict version, it kind of allows you to like kind of use it intermittently. So this is just a file kind of saying where you can set like how strict you want to be with like type safety and that kind of thing. So these are what I'm getting at is these files are just essentially files that, you know, might have some config stuff. So that would be flow, like how configuring the type safety. We're not going to use flow, so but that's what that file is. What about Eslint? Does anyone know what Eslint is? Or like a linter, has anyone heard that term? These are, it's kind of going along with like Prettier. These are like, a linter is going to like go through your code and, you know, kind of check to see like it's clean. And you've seen examples of this, like when, and we saw an example of this actually with Netlify. Remember how when I pushed up to Netlify, my app didn't build because I had a unused import? That would be like an example of like a linter breaking that, because you might have a rule in your linter and, you know, and it's going to be there by default, like no unused imports. So what you might have to do at like like once you something that might get built into like pushing to master or like pushing to a branch would be like a linter would run automatically. And if you break any of your linting rules, it won't even push. And it's just a way to help keep your code clean. So maybe that's something we can talk about in a separate lecture, because when you start to apply for jobs, I think one common thing that jobs, like in a job interview, they might ask you to do is they might give you a little like coding assessment. Like, here, go work on this project that might take 3 or 4 hours over the weekend. And then like push it up to a GitHub repo and then we'll look at it. It's kind of like an open book quiz or something. Like it might be like, oh, for like my job at Evernym when I applied, they had me like do an Axios call to an API and then like render some cards. And they wanted the cards rendered in a certain way and they wanted stuff done in a certain way. And that was like part of like the interview process. And so then they're going to, you know, you turn in your GitHub repo and then they look at your code. So things like linting and using like Prettier or like a code formatter for something like that, you definitely are going to want to do that. Because you're not going to want to like turn in code, you know, that like this, you know, where there's all these like spaces and stuff is not tabbed in correctly, and there's all these like unused imports. So you want those linters and like that Prettier stuff to help keep you consistent and help keep your code clean. Cool. So that's just a little bit about that. So let's go ahead and actually just get started with React Native. So what I'm going to do for this, I'm just going to, since they gave us quite a bit of boilerplate code, I'm just going to go ahead and just delete all this. We can just start from scratch. Cool. So now we're getting an error. We're getting a couple, like I can like go through these logs, but we can see this error. Let's see if I can also see this error in my console. So since I have this console, debugging console open, this is another place where I can kind of use as a debugging tool. But, and like I can dismiss an error. It's not going to do much because that's just going to be blank. So let's go through and let's fix that. Well, we need to actually, write some code. So let's go ahead and write some React Native just from scratch. So with React Native, we're going to need to import all of the components we use. So let's talk about probably two of the most basic ones and the most commonly used, or potentially, that's going to be a view. I import that from React Native. You can essentially think of a view as like a div. It's not the same, but that's really kind of, what it's going to be, or what we're going to use it for. So we can have a view. That's a common one. And then if we ever want to write text, we can use the text component. Okay. And then we can do something like this const app. Just like we would with HTML, I might, when I do my simple stubbed out component, export default. I'm getting another error, React is not defined. So when we use React, like especially with create React app, I don't have to import React, which I think kind of makes sense, but there's actually a reason why I'm not using React anywhere, right? I'm not doing like, React component or something like that. Does anyone know why I actually need to import React right here? What React thing am I using? Or React feature?
JSX?
Yeah, I'm using JSX. So that's why I need React. And there we go. I mean, this is hard to see, but that text is there. Do a couple more, save it. It's just up in that upper left corner, and there's also this like little notch that is kind of screwing things up. So there's also another component called the safe area view. So I could wrap my whole app in that. See if that fixes it. And that safe area view essentially just, phones are different. Some phones have this notch, other phones don't. The safe area view just kind of helps us with that. Once we start using React navigation, we can get rid of that, but cool.
What does it mean if it says runtime is not ready for debugging? Make sure Metro is running.
That would mean, or what you don't have. So when I ran this npx React Native start, like when it says the Metro bundler is not running, that's what I think it would be. Because notice here, this is this where I ran npx React Native start. Whenever I make a change, it's going to like, it rebuilds like the JavaScript file. It could be like, so there's some dashes in there. Go make a change. So yeah, so like it rebuilds that. So that would be my initial guess. That maybe you quit out of here. So this npx React Native start, you need this to be just running, kind of like you would like your Rails server or your React server. Is that what it was?
No, I mean, that had been running the whole time. So
Why don't you share your screen? Because I think some of these errors can be good to look at together.
sure. So this is the error that I'm getting, but I have Metro running. I just stopped and restarted it to see if it was not registering something, but
Okay, click reload, that button in your phone where it says reload. Runtime is not. Okay, so that's, I mean, that's at least good because it's showing in your terminal that it was. Let's try this. Can you do a,
but it's showing here, actually.
yeah, go make another change. Let's see if we get that same error.
Okay. Well, what was that thing that you put here?
A safe area view.
That didn't work.
You need to import that from React Native. Okay.
Okay, it seems to be working now. So I don't know why I didn't before, but
Cool.
maybe just
Good old just turn on, turn off type deal.
yeah, I guess so.
Sweet. Yeah, so there's that. Like, let's say we wanted to write, and this is where we like, I think as we go through like today and tomorrow, you're gonna be like, oh, this is like React Native's pretty straightforward. Actually, I am gonna do one thing. Since I did the git in it, always good just to do a git add, so I don't have all those random changes. Commit those. If you ever see like here and you have like in your git history and you have like 62 changes, that's probably a sign. It's definitely a sign you're not committing enough. Or like it's something like, oh, you just added something big. So yeah, commit those. Cool. So let's come in here and let's say like I want to, I don't want to do all of this in my app. I don't want to get this file really messy. So let's just come in, create a, another component. So this is not going to be any different than how you would do it with React. So you just give it a component name. Let's just do like demo1.js. Import React from React. Sort. And just come in here and write out your app or your component. Function that takes props. Again, yeah, for all of these components, we are going to need to import. So I feel like I formatted document there. This one got rid of the parentheses if I format the document. So if you do a Command Shift P, this will bring up some commands you can do. And then you can like search here. So I searched format document, and that will go through that, because I'm using Prettier here. That will go through the Prettier file and it'll like go apply all the rules. You can have it set up when you save, it automatically does it, so you don't have to do that. But it's like adding a semicolon there. It got rid of the parentheses. So let's go back to our app.js. And now I want to use that. Well, how do I use that? Just same way I would a React component. Just import it and use it. How do I send props? Same way. So props is going to be the same. I can, have this demo one component. I can use it multiple times. I can give this a title prop. Now I can just use it props.title. What if I want to have some state? There, we're just going to grab our useState hook. Count. Set count. Let's try something like this. I can't remember this. Okay. So let's look at this. I did a view and then I have count and count. I get this error. Text string must be rendered within a text component. Okay, so I can't put text in a view component. I actually have to put this in a text component. I do believe this would work on Android, but doesn't work on iOS. So if you want to use text, that needs to be wrapped in a text component. Cool. So let's just keep going with this. Let's say like we want to do a click. So it's not that things get, they're not 100% the same. There's going to be some differences, obviously, between React and React Native. So one of them is definitely going to be like maybe what kind of components you use. So let's just try doing this with the view and like the callbacks. I'll click. Let's call this. Let's just do a function here. Set count. That's kind of how I think I'd do that in React. I'd have an on click where I just set that count to count +1. Clicking on that, it's not working. There's not a click. Is there a on press? It's not on click, it's on press. Because you're really on a phone, you're not clicking a button, you're pressing the screen. So I can add a on press event handler. And then I set the state and it re-renders. So we're doing a little counter component. Not much different than it would be like from React and React Native. So a couple small differences we've seen, like we have to use view, like we have to use this text component. We can't just throw text in any like a view component or it's going to break. We don't have an on click, it's an on press, but it's like the same thing. So very much more similar than it is different. Cool. The other thing is, we're using this view. There's also different components. There is a touchable opacity. Oh yeah, once again, this needs to be in the text. You can just throw that in there. Minus. So notice with this one, when I press on it, it gives me like a little animation effect. Versus the add, where it doesn't give me any feedback, like any of that visual feedback. So there's going to be a lot of these components, where they have a lot of this built-in kind of native UI UX. And that's a nice little, let the user know that this has been pressed. Because that just clicking on the ad, there's really nothing in the UI that shows that's been clicked. So when it comes to, these components, we might want to use some of the ones that, React Native gives us. There's also like a button component. I forget if this one. I throw the text in here. I think the button component has a prop that I need to give it the text. button is not defined. Title, it's title. So the title prop of a button must be a string. So it needs a title prop, and it has to be a string. So I give that a title. And then there's a button. Now, if I were running this on a Android phone, this button would not look like this. It'd be like the like solid blue button with like white text, like a native material design. Because Android phones is kind of like material design. So it kind of have that big blue button or whatever color you were using by default. So that's kind of another different thing that you'll see with mobile development and with React Native. When we use like a button component, it's going to use the default native styling that that phone would use. So with an iOS phone, you know, a button doesn't have like a border, it's just kind of centered, and it's got blue text. And then when I click on it, it's got a touchable opacity like effect. But yeah, this one would also have like a on press. So maybe for this one, set count. So we can add, reset that to 0. Maybe for the touchable opacity. You know, once again, the touchable opacity, that's going to have a on press. It's -1. Cool. There is, I want to talk about one more. This is a newer kind of button. It's kind of like a new component. Let's look at this. It's called Depressable. This is a React Native component. This one just gives you like, there's a lot of functionality with this. Okay. Actually, let me show the, I'm just going to show what this in is like UI. So in their documentation, so this one just has a little more events you can call on it. So there's a on press in event. So that's like when you first touch down on your screen. And then there's a on press out, which would like when you release. And then there's just a on press. So that would be, that's like what we're using the on press, but you can also see like when they pressed in and when they pressed out. There's also like when you press in, if you hold it down for, you know, half a second, then it's going to call a on long press function. And then once you finally let go, it'll call that on press out. And also with React Native components, this is, I think, one of the things I really like about React Native, like compared to like HTML, it's like when you get an H1 tag from HTML, there's like not that much functionality built in. When you get like a button, there's not that much functionality built in. But this is React Native. These are just React components. So like even a button, you know, there's going to be like props on it. It's going to have all of this functionality built in. So when you're developing with React Native, this is definitely a good resource because, you know, you can't just kind of remember all of this stuff. So going through their docs, seeing what props you have. It's kind of like when you use like semantic UI or like Bootstrap, you know, you become dependent on their docs because there's just a lot of those components are very functional. So let's just kind of go through these and look at some of these examples. And just another thing, just to note, you might see some props that are are OS specific. So this like Android ripple effect or prop, this is only going to work on Android phones. So Apple iOS doesn't have this. So you will occasionally, you will see sometimes like that, things like that. But let's go through and just look at these on-press, this little on-press demo. So let's just do this as state. I'm going to create some text state. Set text. And by default, let's just have this be press. Why is that? Oh, I'm getting a spell check issue, so I'm going to add this word. Okay, so let's look at some of these callbacks. So let's do our on press in. And let's just do a little callback function right here. Set text. But when that's the only one I have right now, when I press that in, it changes the text to on press in. A couple of these, so I'm going to do this. Let's do our on press out. On press out. Save that. Get screenshot. So it looks like this didn't reset all the way, so I could try like a Command R because that should say press. So let's press it. I press it. I'm still holding down. It's saying on press in. Once I let go, that on press out has been triggered. Let's see how this works. If I do an on press, I might need to reload Command R, or I could do the device shake reload to reload that. So I press, I'm holding down, that's the on press in. I let go. So it did do the on press out, but then after that on press out ran, then the on press happened. So it follows this flow. Then we have the on long press. So I press that, I hold it down for more than half a second. There's the on long press. Then I trigger it, and then I get the on press out called. Because with this flow, if I do the half a second, I'm not gonna, it triggers this on long press and then the on press out. So there are, 4 callbacks we can have just for like a pressable component. Cool. Any questions on this so far? This really doesn't probably feel like anything's that new, right? Pretty straightforward so far. And really it's like, that's how it's going to be. I mean, we'll get to like something like React navigation. That's going to be different a little, but it's similar to React Router. It's kind of like the same idea in some ways, but it's a little different for sure. But yeah, as for now, it's like we are just essentially writing React, which makes this really cool. So, and really easy to learn. So let's get back. One thing that is a little different, not too much different, but is styling. So let's take a break. And when we get back, we'll do some kind of try to make this look a little better. Any questions though, or anything? Anyone having any issues?
I'm actually having a weird issue that's been going on a while. It's just that like it won't generate the closing tags for anything. And it also won't import anything without me actually typing every single thing out. Michael tried to help me out with it. We went through like all my settings and it looks like it should all be working. So maybe like later we could look at that.
Okay, yeah. We can look at that. Like, if you want to, you can hop off. Let's come back at 10:45. If you need to take a break, Ruby, that's cool too. But if you want to, we could look at it now.
Yeah, we can look at it real quick. It's probably something simple. I just can't figure it out. It's driving me crazy. So it's been happening like if I want to add in like a text, it won't ever add the closing. Like it used to always automatically do that. And it, like if I were to add like Depressable or something, it would never add it up here. I would always have to like type it. It never recognizes that I'm trying to add something.
Let's do VS Code auto import. I'm just Googling this because yeah, VS Code should do that automatically.
And it has it, I forget where it is in the settings, but it has it like on for HTML stuff. And it doesn't work for HTML either.
Well, this isn't HTML, and neither is it in React.
Okay.
But it's still. Let me see which ones I have installed. I'm just gonna look at which ones I have installed. Because you have Prettier, right?
Yeah, I do.
I don't think Prettier does that anyway, but yeah, like because I really don't have. Okay, I'm just Googling it. We could try to just install an extension, but I swear that should just work by default. Go to like VS Code and click on that the box icon on the left. That's 4 box, like 3, yeah, the extensions. Search for auto import. Well, that that only work with TypeScript? Works with TypeScript. Yeah, never mind. What about import relative path? Oh yeah, it's like the fourth one. Oh,
This one?
yeah, just install that one. These are easy enough to install.
Do I need to close it and restart it?
I feel like it should just work if it's not asking you to restart. Usually if they want you to restart, it will say it. Yeah, try reloading it, see if. Do a Command-Shift-P. Can you look for settings? Where is it? Preference. Yeah, open that one. Open settings, the top one.
Top one.
Go up to like the code section, like on your top left where it says code by the apple on your computer. Go to preferences, settings. Is there,
There was this guy or
brackets? Yeah, what are the options there? Try always. Here, I'm gonna pull up mine and see if I can see. If there's any, okay, you can switch, yeah, switch that.
can you visit always?
Mine's on language defined. I don't think that was.
It's weird because I didn't change anything. I just started doing this out of nowhere.
Let me look at some of your extensions. Go to the boxes, that box on the left.
So I've got the bracket pair thing. Maybe something happened because it's not, you're not updating it anymore. I don't know.
What about Prettier? Did you just install this? Like,
No, I've had it a while.
it's gonna be some setting somewhere.
Mhm.
It's weird. All the things I'm seeing online are like it's breaking with TypeScript.
I did have this in here for a minute. It's not in there anymore. Should I uninstall it? This was for a TypeScript thing, that error that I was getting.
Um, yeah, I mean you could install that. I don't really. You uninstalled that?
Yeah, I mean, it's not enabled anymore, but it's installed, I guess, still, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that really shouldn't. If it is, yeah, if it's not enabled, it really shouldn't affect it. Let's try this. Create a file. Go to, yeah, your file, and in the root, call it JSON config.json. I'm going to give you this to throw in there. I'm guessing. I'll just throw this into U of U channel. Paste that in there.
Okay.
But this wasn't working for like a your React project either, right?
Yeah, this hasn't been working for like a week, and I've trying to like Google stuff and figure it out, and I just can't get anywhere with it. Should I try it now?
Yeah. But did you save that file?
Yeah.
Yeah, save this. Okay.
Nothing.
Uninstall VS Code and reinstall it.
Yeah, I can do that.
You don't have to extension. You'll have to reinstall all your extensions.
Okay. I can do that like at lunch, so it doesn't mess up what we're doing today.
Okay, I would try doing that.
All right. Thanks for the help.
Sorry, that's not like a good solution, but I think
That's okay.
that's probably the quickest.
Yeah, it's something just got messed up. All right, I'm gonna take a quick break.
Okay, sorry, I guess it is time. Let's get started. So just a quick little side note, just since I was talking about this little kind of stuff like this with the Ruby. I want to show you, yeah, just a little kind of about how to customize the VS Code. So we've talked about extensions, and there are a ton of extensions that you can use to, you know, make development nicer, like something like the bracket pair colorizer that we use, where it kind of shows, gives us this nice like highlighting of like, hey, this is where this bracket begins and that's where it ends. And it also colors them differently. So things like that, you know, these little tools that can help, you know, just make like VS Code really functional. We've also seen like something like Prettier, where we can get some code, like some coding styles, and, you know, clean up our code. So let's take something like Prettier. So if you haven't installed Prettier, just type in Prettier.
You're not screen sharing, James.
Oh, thank you. So you can take like Prettier. It's just an extension. You can search for it right here, Prettier. Now we have this. And yeah, there's a lot of like customization we can do with this, but I would definitely suggest just leave this default for now, because, you know, you might want to use this with your group. So you might, when you go work for a company, you know, they might have their own specific rule. Like say they are using Prettier, they might have their own like configuration files to like, you know, these are the rules we want to use for like our code style. So now we have this installed. Another thing I could look at is if I go to code, like up in the left, and preferences and settings, or I could just do the command comma to bring this up. This is the settings page for, you know, VS Code. Now there's two different tabs here. There's user and workspace. So think of user as like more like global type settings. Like, you know, whenever I start a project, these are kind of the things I want to use. Like these are the settings just kind of globally by default. There's also workspace settings. Now these are going to be specific to like the workspace to the project. So like if you had like your portfolio project, you might, and there's maybe different rules for that. That would be for this specific one. So it's going to be like this folder. But there's a lot of things you can change in here. There's a lot of different, you know, settings we can do, like, and stuff like the IntelliSense. So something like the IntelliSense is when you're like typing and it brings up like suggestions of what to type next. So you can do things like that. There's files that we can, you know, configure. There's just tons of things you can do here. You can like change the appearance, what kind of buttons you have. You can change the color. But something that we can use with Prettier is like, because I was doing that file on like Command-Shift-P and would automatically would have to hit the save. I can have that happen automatically. So I can do like search for format on save. And like I can come in here and I can, trigger that. So whenever I save something, it's going to format it. Auto import. This was like what I was looking at with the Ruby. And Ruby, maybe you could see if any of these are not the same, but like stuff like even like auto import. What's going on outside? Maybe this one, Ruby. So if I search auto import, disable auto import suggestions. I don't know if that's disabled. Maybe it won't work.
Yeah, let me look.
So that would be a little weird because I think that's by default. I don't know. That would mean you would have like had to randomly go in there and like unselected that. But so for now, we just did, so I'm kind of just showing you this, but we did two things. We installed Prettier, and then I turned on the file format on save feature. So now if I were to go to like my app.js and whatever, have some of this going on, and I click save, it automatically formats that for me. So it's just nice. It just keeps that cleaner. And it's using the Prettier. So you have to have Prettier installed, or like it has to have a formatter to turn on that format on save. But now it does that. And that's like such an awesome feature. Cool. Just like a little warning with these extensions. I've just seen some people go like ham on these extensions, and like they really, you can kind of, if you don't like know what you're doing or you're installing too many, you might like install some that like conflict with one another. Like say if you install, because there's other things like Prettier that are going to like do this for you. So sometimes people would maybe install 3 or 4 extensions that are trying to do the same thing. So then they kind of conflict. And like VS Code's like, well, which one do I use? And that kind of thing. So just, I'm not saying like just kind of add these sparingly, but these are really helpful. Like I have this bracket pair colorizer. I have a spell checker. I have Get Lens and Prettier. Things like Rufo. If you want, because I think Prettier doesn't work with Ruby. So if you wanted like a kind of like this Ruby formatter, I think this can be a good one. But yeah, cool. So with that, but yeah, go through and make like some of these settings. This is where you can, go through and decide what things you might want, your custom settings. like auto save, maybe you want auto save turned on. And auto save, I think just I'm typing and it sees that a change made. I don't even have to hit Command S and it saves it. I kind of don't like autosave just if I'm using like a emulator or something, because then it can like break easy. Because it's like saving after I make a change. So lots of different settings. So turn that off. Yeah, so let's keep going with React Native. So when we left, we were just talking about, maybe let's style this a tad bit. So let's go to our, I'm just gonna clean this up. I'm just gonna get rid of all those app components. All right, so let's go just to our demo one and let's start styling this a little bit, because this, yeah, doesn't look too great. So get that back to count. Okay, so with styling, we're going to use a component from React Native called Style Sheet. And I'm going to come down here and I'm going to create kind of similarly to what we did with React. I'm just going to create a styles object, but I'm going to use that style sheet component from React Native and call the create method. And this, I just pass it an object. And it's going to look very similar. That object is going to be my style. So like, let's say I want like a button container style. And that's just going to be an object where I can, go in and throw like some margin. 20 pixels. Like that's normally how we would do that with HTML and CSS. Something to note though is one big difference. This is going to look a lot like CSS, but it's not CSS. So there's going to be some small differences. Like I'm not going to use pixels or M's or rems. I'm just going to use a number. It's going to be 20. And then come here and give this a style prop. Styles dot. What did I call button container? And now we're having some margin. So if I want to do a border, we do border, like this is how we would do it in like CSS, 1 pixel solid, black. We tell it how big we want it, give it the color. I don't see the border. That doesn't seem to be working. Also surprised that's not breaking. Let's try to get our border working. Let's give it a size. What is that? All right. Trying to think of a border was not defined here. Did they fix that? All right, let's try this. I'm going to use this border size and a border color. Is my border?
I think it's border width.
Border width. I'm surprised this isn't breaking. Usually it breaks when you don't give it a valid. This is weird. Okay. Why is it? Dang, I kind of liked that. So they must have changed this recently. It used to be if you gave them, that's why I was like, why isn't it breaking? If you gave them a bad attribute, it would like break your app. You get like a warning and it would say like border does not exist. I gave it like border size. You know, it'd say, hey, border size does not exist. I guess it's allowing it to go through. But yeah, border size is not like border's not a, I guess the point I was trying to show here back with border. Like border is not a acceptable attribute. It is in CSS, but not with, you know, React Native. So we give it a border width. Does it work? Like, yeah, so that will default to black, and then we can change the color with border color. So I wanted that to break because it brings up all of the attributes, React Native style attributes. Let's see if I can find that list. One second. This is a good one. React Native styling cheat sheet. So here are the attributes you can give. So I'll select this out because there's really not that many. I guess there's a lot of them. Like a lot of them are like you have border. There's a lot of them because like border has like so many different options. But let me select this out. Cool. So this kind of shows what you can do, what type of data it's expecting. And yeah, it used to be if you didn't give them one of these specific ones, it would break your app and you get an error. I guess now they're kind of doing it the CSS way where they'll just ignore it. Cool. So let's keep going. So those are like the things, but if you notice, if you do look at these, they're very similar to what you would see with CSS, like align content, align items. Like this is Flexbox. So that's one thing. If you want to align stuff with React Native, you're going to use Flexbox concepts. So it relies on Flexbox. So that's how you're going to align stuff. So that's going to be all the same. You know, you have margin, you have padding, you have position. So you have similar positions, absolute and relative. There's not like inherent, but you have like the those positioning things that you do in CSS. Something that might be also a little different is you might have some different styling for different, like iOS versus Android. For example, like the way you do shadows is different in an iOS than an Android phone. It's actually, shadows are kind of actually a little bit of a pain. Not like a huge pain, but definitely have had some issues with shadows in trying to make it work with both Android and iOS. Cool. But yeah, let's go and use Flexbox just to arrange this, kind of make this a little prettier. So, but it does follow the same rules. So we have this button container. So we could do like display X. And then now we can just kind of use, you know, Flexbox rules to kind of, you know, to get these aligned. So say for instance, I want this centered. Do like flex align content. Or is it, no, it's justify content center. We'll figure it out. Sorry, I'm just trying to show inspector. I don't think with this, it doesn't have that nice little, we can't come in here and change that. So dependent on that. Okay. Let's go in here and let's do our buttons. We'll kind of just go through this. So I have my add and minus button. If I want those on like the same level, or maybe I want all my button or like these three buttons, I'm just going to wrap these in their own view. View. And got that nice little save feature, so now auto indents that. Styles dot. Why did I call that button container? I'm going to switch this name to counter container. Cool. And then this one I can call like a, maybe I'll call this like button group. BTN group. Am I doing something like completely wrong here? Give me 1 second. Wait, flex direction. Okay, yeah, okay, I need to make that a row. I don't even know if I need to make that just say display flex. So what I'm doing for my button group, and I'm not going to include this reset button. I'm just going to have my two views. I have those add and minus. I'm throwing those in a button group, and I make that flex direction row. let's do like a justify content between. So then that I can start like, deciding how to style those. I'm going to make a border style. Just so I might want to throw some borders on some of these. Especially when working with the Flexbox, it can be nice to kind of see some of these. Cool. So I have different styling. So I'm just, creating a Flexbox around these button groups. So I can do space around. I wanted them to be all the way space between. That's going to move them to the end. So it's kind of just however you want to do it. I'll just do space around with the buttons themselves. I could come in and, add margin and padding, but I don't want to do that. I do want to try one thing here. I'm just going to add borders to all of these views. Okay, that's why those aren't centering. Into this text right here. So when I do the justify content center, it doesn't have, it doesn't need this, it is centered because it's taking up the full width. So if I wanted to center these, that's more of like a text thing. So to kind of show you, I could do like text align center. That's how, I could center that header text if I wanted to. But we can just kind of leave it like this. I feel like the text might even have a centered prop. So if I wanted to look at that, once again, I could just go to the React Native. I mean, you think text would be like a simple component, but there's quite a bit of things we can do with it, like quite a bit of props. Like text has an on press event handler. It has all of this stuff. So I don't think. Maybe not. Maybe I just have to do that in my styling. So let's say, this is more just like, let's say I have this text component and like, I want to be able to come in here and like, give this a centered prop, and then it would be centered. Any ideas on how to do that? Because looking through like the documentation, it doesn't have like a centered prop or something like that. But maybe I want like to have the ability to add that and then it would center it. How do you think I could make this happen? And because another thing I could ask, like, so we also have this text component. You know, maybe I know in my app, I'm going to have 3 different sizes. So, you know, small, like text sizes, small, medium, large. You know, because one thing we get with like HTML and CSS, you know, we have like an H1, we have an H2, we have an H3, H4. But with React Native, we just have this like text component. So what I could do is, but we like have to use the text component if we want to write text. So what I could do is I could come in here and I could create my own text component. Like, let's call it app text. React, React. And then import text from React Native. So I could do, I'm just kind of going to wrap this text component in my own component. So there's my app text component. Or, you know, maybe I make like maybe I make a paragraph component and like a header component. I could even break it up into that way, but let's just make one component that handles all of our app text. So now instead of using text, let's use my app text component. Import app text. React is not defined. Oh, import React from React. Cool. So now my demo, I can just use, I can do Command F for text and replace this with app text. Let's see, where am I? I don't need to replace those ones, or actually I want to make this case specific so I can select the uppercase. I don't want to change those two. I don't want to change that one. I can go through and change these. I don't want to change those ones. I don't need this text component because I'm always just going to use the app text. So now we're this one text where I do styles.border. There's one I thought I have where it was centered. Oh, wait, I guess not. Okay, cool. So let's go through and now, like, let's make like a large prop work or like a size. So we're gonna have our app text have 3 different sizes. So a couple ways we could do this. If inline styling works with React Native, it does. So we can do inline styling, font size. So we could do something like this. We could say font size equals, get font size. Call a function here. Get font size. Do something like this. If props not large, something obnoxiously big, return 40. If props dot small, 10, else return 20. So now, like, even though this is just like a text component, this can start to get like pretty complicated. So now I can, in my demo, I can now give it a large or small prop. So for this one, I might want to say, I want this to be large. And now my header is large, and the rest of them are that kind of default 20. And yeah, for this one, maybe I want this to be small. And now that count is small. Let's do, say, like, let's do this. For this one, let's say, like, instead of the style, there's not styles.border. Let's say they come in here and they give me like a color. Maybe I don't want to handle colors right now, but like they do give this a red color. So they're giving my app text, they're saying it large, but then they're also doing like their own custom style. But now that's not red. So something I could do to make that work, to make them still be able to give me their custom styles, is I can just spread out over here the style. That they gave, like that style prop that they gave to the app text. So now I've made my own little text component, which I can give a large prop to, but I can still also give a custom style to it. And then, yeah, we wanted also maybe like a centered prop where that's going to like center it. So with that one, similar, like we could do something like here, text align. Text align. Throw that in a function. So yeah, if props dot centered, you could probably just write this as a one-liner, as a ternary. So let's do return, props dot centered. Question mark, we'll do center. ILB left. So you'll see, like, if you're working even in a React project or a React Native project, especially like with the React Native, since like something like a text, you only have like one text component. You'll probably see a lot of this type of stuff where for any like custom stuff you want on a text, like maybe, is it centered, the size, maybe the font. You might break up into your own custom components. So when you use your custom component, you can add your own little props to it. It's like we did with this app text. We can kind of give it the size, or we can tell if it's centered or not. And we can still also give custom styling to it. So we're kind of wrapping the React Native text component into our own component where we can make it a little more friendly for us to use. And these, like, even though it's just like a text component and it's really just UI, these can get like kind of complicated. We might also do something like that, especially with like a view component. So app view.js. Act. App view. Return. Let's grab the view component from React Native. And then inside of here, we'll want to do, props.children. So whatever they throw inside of our component, we'll just render it. Yeah, we could also do our style here. The first thing I might do is just, spread out over props.style. I'll just take whatever props they gave me and, use those. Turn view style. Because maybe what I want to like do is I would want some default styles. Like maybe if someone's using my view, I want the margin to be, 10 and padding to be 10. Okay, there we go.
On line 13, do you want that to be split layout props.children or just props.children?
Yeah, sorry, that was a autocomplete. This need, yeah, props dot children. Let's get rid of that in the library. So then inside of here, I can use my app view. Let's go through and replace all my view components with that. So now they're all getting, this might be a little extreme, but they're all getting that margin and padding. It got rid of the border on some of them. The button group, or the border, where am I using my border? So it should get rid of the border because I don't want it to get rid of the border. Oh, and then it's also getting rid of my display. Let me go back here. Props.style, should be style, sorry, prop.style. Okay, there we go. I said styles. So that way it wasn't copying over the original styles I gave to it. So yeah, now these two are a little schemewampus, but those are like schemewampus because one I'm using the touchable opacity, the other one I'm now using my app view. So what I probably want to do there is let's have those both be touchable opacities. This one's centered as well, throw in that centered prop. Cool. And like for these two buttons, maybe I could also throw these into let's do this. Let's also like, so the border, let's maybe do that so I don't have to throw in this border style. That can just be part of my view. So I could do like a get border function. It's too spread out. This one's going to be a little weird. Okay, so let's do this const get border. With this syntax like this, what type of structure do you think get border should return?
Object.
An object. So what I'm planning to do is destructure that right there. So yeah, I'm expecting that to, return an object. And then I just destructure over it. So what I could do, like if, props dot bordered, what I could do is take that border that I have here, and throw that here, return this. Necessary brackets right here. So if we're bordered, just return this like border styling. If not, just return an empty object so I can destructure over it. And now for my demo, for this app view, if I want to add a border, which ones am I like adding a border? Like right here, I can just do bordered. Maybe I should just say border. I think that's, let me say bordered. I can go through and add borders to that. Yeah, that's. So now that, and you will definitely see this with the React Native and React, you'll see these components that really are just wrapping, other components and just kind of giving you that extra functionality. So we're getting this a little, I mean, as far as like the structure, it's a little cleaner, we're able to like change the size of our text, add a border to stuff we want, text line, change the color, breaking, and this isn't necessarily like a React Native thing, like breaking this up into their own individual components, but I think definitely once you get to React Native and you start, I think you could even start to do this with like your projects, your web projects, your portfolio projects, is thinking about some of those components, where they're very similar, but maybe only a couple things change. And like an example would be something like, you're using all the same text, but maybe the only difference is you have 3 different sizes. And some of it, and it's either left aligned or centered. Well, what you could do is you could make your own custom text component where you just handle those cases. And then wherever you use your text component, it's really simple because then you can just say, hey, this is small text or large text, and this is centered. And you still give the ability you know, if you do want something special, that custom style, you can still pass that on down. Cool. But this kind of thing, like even this, I don't think we talked about like something like this too much. This, like I said, this is not a React Native thing. This is just React. You might want to, like, it might be more tempting to do this React Native because, like I said, with text, this is a way we can make our own text component, make it reusable for our own app. Cool. So yeah, let's take a break. When we get back, we'll talk, let's do like an Axios call and see if that's that much different as well. So let's come back. Let's just call it 12 o'clock. I'm also going to create a repo for this. Does anyone just want any of this slacked out? If not, I'll create a repo and push this up right now. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Let me share my screen before I forget. All right, so let's do a little Axios call where we grab some data. So I'm going to create a new component for this. I'll kind of just see how straightforward this is. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to create a component called memes.js because I'm going to use, if you remember from last week, I actually pushed up to Heroku an API. I had like my little app that I made where we just have a couple, it's just a meme that has an image and a title. But you can also, so that's the website. There's also an API call we can make to get that data. So let's in our React Native app, hit this URL to get this data from our Heroku app we pushed up last week. Okay, so that was kind of like memes are supposed to be. So I'm just going to go through my process. So I'm going to get my import React from React. I'm going to import in my app view. So I'm going to import my app components. So I'm going to reuse those. App view. Let's go ahead and make this, bordered. And inside of here, let's do a app text. Let's export default this. So just get this set up here. So I'll go ahead and do my memes component here. So I got a syntax error. It's a capital R that needs to be lowercase. Right here, import React from React. So now I have that memes component. Oh, it's bordered. I wanted that to be bordered. I just called it border. So now that has a border. Okay. And then, yeah, if I wanted to, I can make that large and centered. And since I'm like reusing like these components that I created, it is, I know this doesn't look nice, but it is going to start to give me that consistency. At least I have that where my app is, it has the same padding and margin, and the font sizes are, there's only a couple of them. So there can at least be that consistency. All right. So yeah, we want to do an Axios call, and this being React Native, actually, there's not going to be much of a difference. So first thing I need to do is I need to add Axios. Okay, import Axios from Axios. I'm going to want to do this on mount, and I'm going to need some state for that. So it's the same thing. I grab my use state hook. I would grab my use effect hook. Effect. That's all the same. Means. So let's do this const. It's just an async function. See, this is all just JavaScript. So that's why this is really nice. I can just do my try catch block. Let res equal await axios.get this URL. Throw this out in Slack. Set, and then we need some meme state, so we need const memes, set memes equals use state. That would just be an empty array. Here we could do set memes as dot data. I'm going to do another app test because in here I'm just going to JSON stringify memes. Just to show you this, like maybe we want to do like a console.log res. And maybe for the catch, we want to do like an alert. So we're not going to have an alert. We're going to have to like go through the components and see like, you know, what kind of component could we potentially use. I've actually forgotten React Native alert. I think it is just alert. So I could look at how, you know, this works. We import alert from React Native. Show alert. We can do like this alert.alert. And it looks like we can give it some options. So let's just see here. So we give it I think that's the title. This should be the message. And then we can give it an array of buttons. So let's just go ahead and like, what I'm going to do is just copy this whole alert.alert. This, I'll throw it in Slack. I can just throw that inside of this catch. So the one thing I do need to do, I need to import alert from React Native. And just to mess this up, I can just give this a bad URL. Cause a 404. So there's the alert.title and then the message. And then if I hit cancel, it does another alert cancel pressed. And that one just, I can click OK on that one. So I think, what do we want? Then we don't want that second one, so I can just do the, let's try this, make this cancelable true on here. Maybe I don't even need this whole second array. This one right here. This one. Okay, yeah. So a little different. Could do something like this, error dot occurred, error occurred. For the second option, I don't know if that's going to give us anything valid. Okay, like that. Error dot response. Like the status maybe. But there's some I could find. Well, if I wanted to try to do that, I could do like a console.log error just to see what that's looking like. Maybe even console.log error.response. So yeah, if I want to see these errors, this is where I can I need to open up my debugging tool, which I don't know where it is. So I'm going to stop debugging, and I'm going to debug with Chrome just so I can find that window. I don't know where it went. Sorry, I had to add some Chuck Norris's and Bob Ross images to my database. Where is it? Okay, I'm going to stop debugging. I'm just trying to find that debugger. So debug with Chrome. Why is that not popping up anywhere? All right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to quit out of Chrome. That was right there. Dang it. Okay, there it was. Open up Chrome. So there's that. So now I can inspect console. So there's my, there's that error that I'm logging. There's the error.response. I can't get the status. the status, error.response status. So this is a way you can go in and like, do some logs. Throw that status in there. So error.response.status is the 404. So if I just do a string right there, it works. Stringify this. Okay, there we go. So I could have an error occurred. I could give it just a basic message. But I can also go into my console and go explore a little more like what that error actually was. See the status, see that object, where I can, if I need more information, I can get that. But there's a little way you can debug and see the console. But if I get this working to just the way it was, to the right URL, I reload, like it's getting that data.
Did you Slack out your memes file, please?
Yeah. So, see that? So yeah, this is like, if you're coming from React and you're like starting to learn React Native, you're going to find it's, very much the same, but then you'll like get into stuff like, an alert where the alert is different. But once again, it's going to be like, you just got to read the documentation and like go through an example and just get it to work the way you want it to work. But as far as like getting the memes or doing an Axios call, there's really nothing that much different. If we want to do like a loader, let's do like some loading UI. So by default, this will be true. So something we could use, React Native is going to give us is they have an activity indicator component. And really what this is going to do is this gives us a spinner. Now notice how this spinner looks. I'll show you where we can just throw one of these inside of our app. So I'll just grab that activity indicator component. And we can do something like this. Loading and that activity indicator. I think this can take like a large prop and a color. Let's just leave it large for now. Oh, it's a size prop. Okay, size equals large. Now see, this is kind of what I was talking about. Like a lot of these components, they'll use the default native, like the UI. So when I look at it, React, like on the React documentation, it's using this spinner. That's because it's using, that's the material design spinner. That's the Android one with an iOS phone. It's this spinner. That's kind of like iOS's default spinner. We could go in and create our own custom spinner, but with this one, we just, with the activity indicator, that's a good way, easy way we can get like the default, OS spinner. Cool. So something I need, that's just permanently running. So I just need to go in and fix my state for that. So let's go ahead and set a few faults here and also in my error. So I have a little bit of a loader. I could also do something like this. Well, we'll do the get memes. So for now, we're just stringifying the memes. And just to see that working, but let's do this. Let's do a not loading. And get memes. Okay, so we'll just throw that into its own little function. Or sorry, we'll call this render memes. This will be responsible for drawing out those memes. So const render memes. Let's go through our memes.map. Go through each meme. So for this, yeah, we can go ahead and return. If I wanted to, I could use my app view again. Let's do some app text. It's going to be, so a meme has a title and it has an image URL. We'll throw this into an image in just 1 second, but let's just throw the URL for, grab that right now. I need to return this whole thing. I'm going to make this large. Let's just also throw a border on here just so I can see these different ones. Okay. Now something, I don't know if you notice, this is overflowing. And I'm trying to like scroll and I can't scroll. So something we need to do here is I actually need if something's going to scroll, you need to wrap that in what's called a scroll view component. So I'm actually going to do it like this. I'm going to say, that JSX means equal that. And then I'm going to have this return the scroll view. From React Native. And I'm going to give it the JSX memes. Now I can, scroll on that. But now my whole app though, because now I can't get down to those other parts as well. So another way I could do this is not throw this here. It's like my whole app kind of, it would be depending on how I'm doing this, but the way I'm kind of setting it up, it's if I go to my app, because now I can't see, because remember how we have the counters here? I can't see those. If I go to my app.js, I really need this to be a scroll view. Now I can start scrolling on like my whole app. So I don't really need it here. Just kind of wanted to show you if I put it here, it would make that one section scrollable, but then I kind of get down to my counters. So now I can just go back to returning this. So now I can scroll the whole thing. Cool. So there's that. Let's just go do an image really quick. So with images in React Native, there's a component for images, where we can just give it a style prop, a source prop. So let's go ahead and try that out. So we'll go back here, go to my memes where I'm mapping over them. Instead of doing an app text, let's do a image. It's source or src source. That'd be m.image. And import image, so I need to auto import that, or invalid prop source. Oh, so I need to give it an object with the URI. And reload. I'm also going to put this back just to make sure that was it, right? That's small. Yeah, there's the image URL. Maybe I need a style on there. I didn't need to give it a width and a height. Cool. So yeah, there is, just a simple way, like making just a basic card, throwing in an image. It's these small differences, like an image works a little differently in React Native than it does with HTML. Text works a little differently, styles work a little differently, but the core concepts of like, doing an Axios call to grab data, render it. It's very, very similar. Let's do one other common thing that we might do, and that's like a, text input. So we could just look at like the text input. There's a component for that text input. It looks like we have a on-change text, a value. So this one, it's a little bit like we just, the same way that we do with a, HTML page, we're going to create some state for each input. And then we're going to just go ahead and use that text value. So let's do that. Go ahead. Let's do const, let's say like we're eventually going to want to like send this up as a post request. So we want a title. Let's use state. Cool. So here, we could do some UI for a new meme. So app text. Grab our text input component. Let's say value. That would be like our title. Once say on change text. It's going to be our set title function. Cool. Oh, take a screenshot. So let's give it a style. I'm just gonna style. Let's give it height or 40. Let's make it a little bigger so it's easier to see. 80. You can see here there's like, it is flashing. Let's not. Let's try getting a border width so we can see it. So yeah, when you need to click on it and then you can use your keyboard. Maybe that doesn't need to be so big. So we can have our new meme, we can have this input, we can type on it. And then, down here, we could do like a touchable opacity. Something like that. We can use once again our app text component. Our on press. Add meme. That's not defined, but we're just following that same flow. Now we're not gonna have a form, but I can just have a button where I do like an add meme function. this would be our async. I'll try catch. That response. Now I don't have, this isn't set up, but you know, I would do an Axios call here, like await Axios.post, you know, /memes. Could send in that title. Oh, okay, sorry, I have this async, I have an equal sign right here. But you know, if we did have this set up, I'm just going to do this in the air. You know, same way we would do with React. If you know, once we add a meme, I would do an Axios call to add the meme. I would send the data. I mean, this is going to fail because this is a 404. We don't have that route set up. And then I could just go through and add the meme to my memes. And yeah, for this one, I'd also want like a, you know, image URL. Go on and create some state for that. Just change this input to be image URL and set image URL. We would send that up. Probably want to call this one image URL or match what it's called in my, that's what it's going to be called in my database, but in my state, I'm calling it image URL. I think, yeah, it's getting a little messed up, but because, and when I would get this back from my database, it would be image underscore URL. But for now, with how I'm doing that, that's image URL. Add, and there we go. Sweet. So just as a review, since we've been doing all this React Native stuff, let's just add this functionality, this post functionality to the back end of this website. And it'll be a little bit of a, like a Heroku thing. So I have my Heroku app from last week. I'm just going to do this really kind of quick. So you can just kind of, you don't need to follow along because this is going to be specifically for the Heroku app I have. Oh, I do have a memes create. Okay. So it looks like in this, or did we do a memes create? Oh, it looks like we do have a memes create. Oh. Let's make another one because this one is using a file and then it's uploading the Cloudinary. How I have this one set up, we just need a image URL. So let's make another way to create, because really if we look at the schema, a meme just has a title and an image URL. For this one, we're using, they select it. This was on the website where they select the file on their computer and then they upload that. Let's create another route where we can create a meme, but we're not going to upload it to Cloudinary because we're just expecting the user to give us a URL. So I'm going to do a post to memes. I'm going to call this, let's just do a post memes URL. Because what I just wanted to just review, like, changing this on Heroku. So I'm going to do a post to memes URL. That's going to go to my create URL method. So I need to define that def create URL. Just going to copy this code right here. So this image URL, we're not going to get from the cloud image. It's just going to be params. Image URL. Now, what I'd want to do, since this is I have my React app. Let's actually see if with my React app, I can test this. So here's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to do a rels s-p3001. So now I'm running this app on my local machine. So if I do a localhost 3001 API means, that gives me the data from my development database. So what I'm going to try to do is in my React app, just to test this. I'm just going to copy this. I don't know if this is going to work actually. If my React app's going to know, or if my React Native can hit this. Let's try it though. So you see what I'm trying? I'm trying to hit that local server on my machine in my React Native app. All right. And now my React Native app seems frozen. So let's reload it. Test. Here. Let's click add. That hit. Oh, look, if I look at my server, there's the parameters, title, test, image, URL. I'm still getting an undefined method in my memes controller line 20. So that at least is working. That's like hitting. Oh yeah, that's the wrong URL. That actually hit this method right here. So it skipped this line of code because I didn't have the file. It tried to do that. So then I like cloud image was not defined. Cool. Let's try that again, add. Cool. So if I go back here to my localhost 3001, there it is, title, test, image URL, ASDF. So with my React Native app, I was able to hit that URL. It added it to the database. Cool. So I think that's working. So and yeah, another thing I could test in my React Native app. So now that I have a working backend, let's do this right here, where I set memes. I don't want to do it like this, where it's hard coded. I'm going to do res.data, because that's going to have the ID. That's my, okay, so I need to shake, reload. Cool. So that's working because I'm set, like, I do the Axios call, I post, I get my title, like I send the title, the image URL to the database, it saves, and then I use that response.data as, you know, to add to my new memes, and then I spread out over my old memes. Yeah, I could check here in my database, and I see those memes are there. Sweet. So that was pretty cool, like able to test that. So now I can do on my Heroku app, do a git add dot, git commit -m, post added, push origin master. I don't really like, I'm just pushing this up to GitHub just because, you know, I made a change, but really what I want to do is do a git push Heroku master. And that's going to go through that. Now is going to go push that change I made to Heroku. And another thing I'm going to want to change in my React app is, I close this out, I need to go find it, Heroku. I'm going to want to use this URL now instead of that test one. I'm going to want that to be the same. So now I'm using my production database or that production app, but I'm once that build finishes, now it should have that API memes URL where I do a post request to it. So while that's building, I'm going to do a git add on my React Native app. Added or meme post. Cool, so that's now deployed So I tested it on my local machine as far as the Heroku and that post method. Once I got it working, now I pushed it up to Heroku. So that looks like that was successful. So now my add meme, now I'm doing a post request to that URL. Hopefully I should be pretty confident that this is going to work because I tested it, but you never know. So let's try it. Let's actually try it. See if this is working. So I'm going to go. Let's refresh my app. Test. Quad. And URL here. I mean, I don't have to actually throw one in here, but that's just a string. Click add. And there we go, test prod image URL here. Now if I went to /API/memes, there it is. So that's getting stored to my production database. So yeah, in like in, you know, no, let me show my screen again. In like half a day, you know, we've built a mobile app, you know, where we're able to, I mean, we've done a counter example. Good old, what's a React app without a counter example? Oh, did I break that? It looks like I might have broken my ad, but we can do a counter. We kind of looked at some press events. We looked at some styling things, reusing components. We're doing an Axios call to grab some data, to render that data. We also did an Axios call to create some data. And we're also using, you know, one of our databases. Like we're using a Rails database that we built last week. So yeah, I mean, I think, you know, there's a lot going on here, but also at the same time, it's really, I wouldn't say it's not so much new stuff, just kind of putting together some pieces we already know into, you know, just kind of combining them differently. I mean, obviously with React Native, there was some new things, but not too bad, right? It's pretty straightforward. So yeah, I think with like React Native is really, you know, a great way to, I don't think there's another thing you could do that, you know, really builds your resume, but also is like a review. So I highly recommend you do some React Native stuff when you're done with this course. So cool. That is it for me though. Are there any questions or anything? Sweet. If not, we can hop off. Meet back at 2 o'clock for lunch. Tomorrow we'll do more React Native stuff. We'll talk about mainly React navigation. So we can add different pages, add some navigation stuff. And yeah, with the navigation stuff, there's pretty close to being at a spot where you could build some pretty functional apps. It's cool. Y'all have a good lunch. We'll see you back in an hour.